So yesterday we looked at the first New Deal, and today we're going to be looking at the second New Deal. I would say really some of the big ones from the first New Deal is really the FDIC. Again, that ensures your bank account. So if the bank were to close or something were to happen, your account at that time was insured up to $2,500. Today, that amount is $250,000. That was definitely one of the big ones from the first New Deal. And even though it had limited success, again, the people really saw that FDR was trying to help, the American people get back on their feet. And so in 1936, they're going to reelect him pretty easily. So obviously now that he's been reelected and he's now officially in his second term as president, he's going to launch what we call the second New Deal. So it's going to really be a continuation of those first New Deal programs. Again, you want to think about those three R's: relief, recovery, and reform. Relieve the people of their pain, help them recover from any hardships they may have had, and reform policies to make sure that a Great Depression doesn't happen again. So when FDR decides to go ahead and launch that second New Deal, he's well aware of his doubters in 1935. And so when he's reelected again in 1936, he's going to go ahead and decide that he's going to launch a second New Deal. And something to really sort of keep in mind of is that, FDR was getting very frustrated because he had all these ideas, but we obviously have a system of checks and balances. So it wasn't like FDR could just do whatever it was that he wanted to. So this idea of trying to, pack the court or court packing, it wasn't going to work. A lot of people saw through that as not just unconstitutional, but really almost authoritarian, I should say. Sorry, mixed that up. Very sort of king-like, very dictatorship-like, and so people weren't necessarily a fan of that. But in 1935, he's going to ask Congress for funds to provide relief and increase jobs, and really when he gets reelected again in 1936, he's really going to get the funds to do so. So he's going to continue this idea of deficit spending, which is we're going to continue to borrow to hopefully get us out of the problems that we have. He's certainly not the only president that's ever done this, but I would say he's did it on a grander scale than probably most presidents that we have ever had. And much of the money is going to go to the WPA, or the Workers' Progress Administration. And I'll talk about that in just a minute, but the WPA is going to become very controversial. But it's also going to provide a lot of artwork and things like that many American people have definitely become familiar with. So with the second New Deal, again, he wants to continue on with those three R's, and he wants to make things better for the American people. So the WPA, the Workers' Progress Administration, it spent $11 billion over several years creating jobs for workers. A lot of the jobs, especially in the first New Deal, really focus on infrastructure jobs. So again, it's building roads, building bridges, building public buildings, building schools. You had people who are working in the forestry service. The WPA is going to become very controversial because they're going to offer work to artists, musicians, and theater people, and those who, create movies. And you have to look at this as art. It becomes very controversial. And even when there's budget cuts at schools, and anybody will tell you the first thing that always goes is the arts. Whether it's a band program, the art program, or wherever it may be. They're not going to cut math. They're not going to cut science. They're going to cut what they consider to be more of the fun stuff. And obviously during the Great Depression, things were quite depressing. But FDR sort of thought that it was important that people still have arts and people to, something to smile at and things to look at. Even though it might seem insane today, but during the 1930s, that was the best that Hollywood ever did in terms of the movie industry. If you account for inflation, they made more money during that decade than any other decade before. Well, why? Well, it was 5 cents to see a movie, and people were depressed. So, if they could get a nickel, they'd go see a movie, and for an hour and a half or so, they'd be entertained, and they wouldn't necessarily have to think about, the problems that they had. Think about that today. If you're sad or if you're mad, you read a book or you listen to a certain type of music or you watch a certain type of movie or a show that makes you feel good. So even though we sometimes, I would say, look at art as it's not necessary, I think it's something that we all engage in, whether we're happy, sad, depressed, angry, or whatever it may be. And so the Workers' Progress Administration is really going to provide an ability for artists and musicians and theater people to be able to get work. So they weren't necessarily forced into the infrastructure jobs that the first New Deal was really pushing. And you don't need to write this down, but there are some famous artists that come out of the WPA. Edward Hopper, we'll look at one of his paintings in just a second. Thomas Hart Britton and Grant Wood, who painted this painting on the left. Normally, I would ask kids if they've ever seen this before, and usually I get about half that have seen this image of the farmers here on the left. This farming image is very reflective of the Dust Bowl and the fact that farmers really suffered a great deal during the 1920s as well as the 1930s. The fact of that supply and demand, their food wasn't really worth much. You know, they had overworked the land, and so they weren't able to use it anymore. And so many of them are going to move out west to California, to try to find a job. But you can tell these farmers don't look too happy, and so Grant Wood's really going to capture the mood of farmers, especially during the Great Depression. Dorothea Lange is going to become famous due to her photographs of the Great Depression era. We had looked at her photograph of Migrant Mother a couple weeks ago. Dorothea Lange became a really famous photographer during this time, and she went around the country, photographing just your everyday person to show, the effects that people were suffering through the Great Depression. And she did a fabulous job of really capturing, the images of ordinary Americans and just their everyday struggles. As I mentioned, Edward Hopper was one of the famous ones from the WPA, and this is his most famous artwork and actually one of the most famous paintings in American art history. This is Nighthawks. This is from Edward Hopper, and this was painted in 1842. Again, I've asked kids if they've seen this before. I would say, about half have. And as a matter of fact, Starbucks brought this image back a couple of years ago for one of their gift cards. I remember I saw it and I was like, oh my God, how cool is that? But this definitely became a very famous, WPA artwork. You have a couple people sitting in a diner. It's painting wise, it's renowned for its lighting and things like that. But if you look at this painting, especially the town itself, it looks very deserted, which kind of shows you that people were out and about because, again, they couldn't really afford to be. This might look familiar to you. This is City Park in Lake Elsinore, and even in your own backyard, you have a little bit of a WPA history. If you notice here, it says built by the United States Works Progress Administration in 1938. So even one of your local parks was constructed as a part of the WPA. The big thing that's going to come out of the Second New Deal is the Social Security Act. Star this, highlight it. If there's anything that you need to know, it is Social Security. Social Security is still around today. Ask any of your grandparents about Social Security, and I'm sure that they would give you an earful about how much they get, when they get their check, and when they're expecting it. So Social Security is very much a big deal. The problem with Social Security is this. All of you are going to pay into it once you get a job. As of right now, none of you are going to receive Social Security. Why exactly is that? Well, Social Security is going to run out of funding in about 10 years, and because old people vote and old people don't want their Social Security messed with, no politician is willing to touch it or reform it. So it's definitely becoming a little bit of an issue. Social Security provided some security for the elderly, so anyone who is 65 and older, and of course for unemployed workers. So really Social Security was set up as, a safety net for elderly people. So, let's say your grandmother who was 72 had all of her money in the bank and lost all of her life savings. The federal government basically wanted to give her a safety net, and that is why Social Security was created. Today, it does a lot more than just providing for the elderly. It also provides for unemployed workers. So if you get unemployment insurance, it comes out of Social Security. People who are on permanent disability also receive a Social Security check. So my mom has been basically retired for about 10 years now. She went on permanent disability for her back. She was no longer physically able to work. So as a result, she gets a monthly income check from Social Security. So they pay for those who are unemployed and those who are also permanently disabled, as well as the elderly. Again, the idea of Social Security was it was going to provide welfare for needy people, but initially in its creation, it was specifically for the elderly. And Social Security set the principle that the federal government should be responsible for people who, through no fault of their own, were no longer able to work. And so I think about a student I had a few years ago. She has muscular dystrophy and is in a wheelchair. Obviously, she's not going to be able to do a job, like all of us. So she receives a Social Security check every month as a source of income. Social Security, it does need reforming. And the reason is because, again, everybody's paying into it. But as of right now, people our generation are no longer going to receive it. What's going to happen with Social Security, I don't really know. I don't think any politician will probably touch it until it does officially run out of money. But Social Security is a very, very touchy subject because, again, old people vote, and old people expect their Social Security checks every single month. Something else that's kind of important, I think, to keep in mind with Social Security, it's that people, do rely on a form of retirement. And that's kind of become the problem as well. Social Security is meant to be sort of like a safety net. It wasn't supposed to be an ends to a mean. meaning that when people retired, they weren't supposed to retire on Social Security alone. They were supposed to have a 401k, money in their savings, money in an IRA, things like that. But you do have a lot of people who rely solely on Social Security, which is definitely a problem because you're not going to receive all the money that you need to live a nice, happy, retired life under Social Security. And unfortunately, it's just one of those things that's just not going to happen. And in 1942, the New Deal era is officially going to come to an end when by December 7th of 1941, the United States is attacked by Japan in Pearl Harbor, which is officially going to lead the United States into World War II. Once that happens, there's going to be a ramping up of production, and that's what's officially going to be able to put everybody back to work. And so it's not until World War II happens and the U.S. officially enters World War II that America is officially going to get out of the Great Depression. So even through all that work that FDR was doing in the 1930s, it's really going to be World War II that pulls us out of the Great Depression. It's why you get a lot of conspiracy theories about Pearl Harbor in World War II and the fact that the government, quote unquote, let it happen because they knew that if we entered the war financially, it was going to be a big boost to the economy. So what exactly is the legacy of the New Deal? Well, limited success and unemployment remained high. So at its highest, unemployment was 25%. By the time World War II rolled around, I'd say unemployment was probably at around 15%. So again, things got better, but they definitely weren't great. Were there reforms made that were absolutely necessary? Yes, you can look at the banking system. There was definitely major reform there. The Securities and Exchange Commission, to prevent insider trading in the stock market, those things were definitely important. And Americans were put back to work, but not all Americans. Right? Unemployment's never going to disappear. You're always going to have people that are unemployed. But if you can get that unemployment rate at around 5 to 6%, that's considered pretty good. Anything higher than that, and it becomes a little bit dangerous. Economic recovery was not complete until after World War II. So again, all that work that FDR and getting all those New Deal acts passed, it doesn't officially lead the United States out of the Great Depression. It's not until we enter World War II that the economy is officially going to be fixed. And despite all these negatives, the New Deal gave Americans a strong sense of security and stability. All right, so things like Social Security that are going to provide for the elderly. For a lot of people, it was like, hey, the government's going to have my back. Again, kind of going back to that scene in Cinderella Man, you have Jim Braddock talking and Mike Wilson has like a very negative view of the government. He's like, they cost me my home. They haven't done anything for me. But then you have someone like Jim Braddock who was like, no, the government's going to have our back. And a lot of people by the end of the 1930s and really prior to World War II had this idea that, hey, if something happens, the government's going to have my back. They're going to make sure that I don't fall through the cracks. And of course, with FDR, the role in government is going to change significantly. FDR left many Americans feeling that it was government's job to provide a safety net. I would say this definitely comes down to debate amongst both Democrats and Republicans. We're seeing that right now, especially with COVID-19. We keep hearing of another stimulus package. Some people want another round of direct payments to go out to Americans. Some are saying, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. That shouldn't be happening. But we have to sort of wonder, like, if things go bad, like something like a pandemic happens, is it the responsibility to have people to have saved and to take care of themselves, or should government step in and take care of those people? Again, I think that's a question that gets debated all the time, and we just so happen to be seeing it right now with the current pandemic. Of course, under FDR, this is also going to increase the role of government in people's lives. You have government that's providing jobs for people at a more increasing rate. You have things like Social Security. I would say most people expect Social Security. Even now, Social Security, it is what we call mandatory spending. That is something that has to be covered currently under our budget. There are only two things that are really required under mandatory spending for the government, and it's Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That's it. Everything else is what we call discretionary spending, which means that the government decides to spend money on things, whether it's the military, education, infrastructure, whatever it may be. But Social Security, under our current budget, it is required that we spend money for that every single year. And I'm telling you right now, if you tell grandma or grandpa you're going to take away their Social Security, they will come after you. Just bring it up. Trust me. See what happens. Critics are also going to argue that the New Deal made the government way too powerful, and I would say too intrusive into people's lives. I would say when you talk to some adults, especially those who are more conservative, they definitely feel like government has overstepped their boundaries. I would definitely say you get those arguments now, especially with like Newsom's stay-at-home orders. You have lots of people who are calling him out and speaking out against him, feeling that the government has really started to overstep their boundaries. And of course, another legacy that the New Deal has left, and it's debated on how much a government should provide support. So again, should something like Social Security be around, or should we let people figure things out for their own? If someone is, 25 years old and they don't have health insurance and they get cancer, is it the government's job to pay for it, or are they just kind of out on their own? And again, we continue to have these questions and these debates of how much should government be involved in our lives and how much should people be responsible for themselves. And I would say, even though those questions got brought up under FDR's presidential time in office, those are questions that are still debated even today.